Action.
Great. So, welcome everybody. We're sitting here with Josue Solis. Now, Josue is actually from my company, Lee's, our biggest company I've got going on right now. And Josue runs our marketing department. And I thought, well, Josue, this is another one. Josue happens to be out here visiting in Las Vegas and said, hey, could you put a Lee's shirt on? And we could, while we're in town, like, why don't we record us talking about like what we do in marketing and hopefully get some content and some value from some of our listeners that, want to know about marketing. So, Josue, how long have you been at Lee's?
I've been at Lee's for over 5 years now.
Yeah. And you've been focusing on marketing for a while.
Yeah.
You've been taking classes.
Yeah. Right now I'm currently going to Harvard, getting a digital marketing certificate. And it's been a lot of fun just learning. The marketing realm is always changing.
Shameless plug. Lee's pays for 100% of college tuition. In this case, Josue, I didn't think that someone would take me up on that offer of going to Harvard to do this. So that changed my education budget for the year. But you've been attending there for like 2 years now to get that, through that executive education?
I am on my last course. And I should be done hopefully next month.
Woo! I'm calling the controller and telling him to decrease that budget on my expense. Although I got to tell you, Catherine is soaking up that expense now. Yeah. She's got the Stanford executive education that she's signed up for. I'm like clutching my chest.
Well, that's really cool about Lee's, right? If you want to attract good talent, people that want to grow, offering that tuition reimbursement program makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And it's a good indicator too to know if you have employees that are willing to go that extra step, extra mile to further themselves.
Yeah, and the thing is like you've been one of the best marketing coordinators and marketing managers that I've had and that I've seen in our industry. And you've done amazing things to help grow the marketing within the company, grow. 1 year we grew 87% and we spent 1.8% of our revenue on marketing. Yeah. And it was just shocking. It's been really good. You've got a great track record now. But the funny thing is, when you got to Lee's, you weren't even...
No.
What were you even doing when you started at Lee's?
When I got hired at Lee's, I was actually hired as the HR manager.
He told me he wanted to be a marketer. Like, okay. Yeah. So, you bettered yourself and you focused on going through the courses to get to where you need to be. So let's get in the meat and potatoes. So we'll talk about the bigger things in a second, but let's just say, and the more advanced stuff in marketing that we're doing, but let's just say that you're a listener and you're a mom and pop shop. Maybe it's you and your kid or you and your spouse or whatever. You're running calls in the day. You're coming home at night. I know this is about making deals, but you're thinking, Tom, I know I want to sell my business for $100 million in the future, but I just right now I'm worried about making rent by the end of the month. What would you do if you're looking for like free marketing things, like or not necessarily free, but like low cost marketing things, like get yourself off the ground and get going?
Yeah, I've learned there's fundamentals to marketing, and the first one I always recommend is making sure you have a website. It's interesting to see our competitors around the area, especially the smaller shops, don't have a website. And people don't realize, we all have smartphones, and a lot of people, how they search is through smartphones, right? And the second step is getting your Google My Business, which also stands for GMB. If people can't find you on Google and you don't have a Google My Business, they're not going to find you.
The interesting thing is when you go on Google and you say like, find a plumber in my area or whatever else, it's the section that's where the maps where it has like your star rating and your company name and your address, and that costs $0, right?
$0.
Like, guys, if you don't have a website and a GMB setup, like it just, and honestly, you can go on like Squarespace or something like that, and you can kind of figure out the web stuff on your own.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, they're out there, they want to run more calls, and they want to work harder and spend more time in the night. It's like, stop what you're doing. Get this stuff set up first, and things are going to get exponentially easier for you because things are going to start coming in.
Yeah.
And you can start getting reviews. Everybody can run a call. If you got to, you can go to your neighbor's house and be like, hey, I'm trying to start my plumbing business. Knock, knock, knock. Can I clear a drain for you? Can I do a free plumbing inspection? Can I do whatever? And by the way, I'm on Google. It really helped out my business and help me get going if you let people know who I was and what I did. I mean, you could be doing that. I would go knock on every door on the street offering my services for free just to get them to like refer me to their friends and everything else, get that going. You got your reviews going. Now people start saying, oh, wow, like this guy's reputable. He seems to be doing well. Now you'd actually have to have a good business to make this out. You'd have to be actually good at what you do. You can't fake that. But Google wants to make sure you're not faking it. They want to make sure you're doing a real job. They don't want you paying for ads and, you know, paying for people reviewing you, doing fake reviews in India, and, you know, they've never seen you before or anything else, and like they're just punching them in. Don't do that. Don't be fake. Be real. Offer real services. Get people to give you real reviews, and it starts turning around. I'm just thinking of some of the other free stuff we did. This is actually before you were there. I mean, I was dirt broke when we first got Lee's. If you want to hear about when I first bought Lee's, the largest company that I'm running right now, we had nothing in the beginning. I was dead broke, and we were, you know, I had like 11 employees, and I was trying to figure out what to do, how to get my name out there. And I called up people in my area because the recession just happened. 2008 went down. A lot of people had land that they bought because they were going to develop on. Then the recession happened. They couldn't build anymore. You know this story, don't you? Yeah. I can see you smiling because I've told this a few times in the company, but me and Justin Howard, who is not related to me at all, by the way, we just shared the same last name. He was the warehouse guy. He like swept the floors, delivered parts, that kind of stuff. He and I would go out. We called up these people in the area that had lost land during the recession. And I said, hey, would you mind if I put a billboard up on your property? And they're like, what are you talking about? And I said, well, I got these 4x4s that were 10 or 12 feet long. And I went out and set them up on their properties, like dug little holes and like poured concrete and put them in. And sometimes I had to do it at night so no one would catch me. And I had these billboards printed that were 4 foot by 8 foot sheets of that coroplast. It's kind of like a plastic. And I'd screw them to there. And it was my logo. And they were on like main street corners throughout town. And it looked like I was like going to build a building there. And I called my friends that own the properties. I said, hey, would you let me do this? They're like, oh, I don't care. Like, and I said, well, how much you charge me? They're like, nothing, man. But there's permits and stuff from the city. Well, I didn't want to have to pay for permits. So I just was like, well, if the city comes after me and gives me a fine, they said, well, if the city gives you a fine, like you have to pay it. I said, fine. Funny thing is that thing was up there. A few of those billboards were out there for like 5 or 6 years, and I never got a fine. Like they finally took them down when they wanted to sell the properties because the market came back up. But I mean, we had that going on. Can you tell about our yard sign program that we have?
Yeah, so we have a yard sign program where basically we tell homeowners at the end of the call, we have this $100 contest where once a month we go out to neighborhoods throughout the city, and if you have the yard sign placed on your yard, you win $100. And what's funny about that, you talked about people calling in, right, seeing the signs. Actually, we get calls from people wanting to buy or rent the home because they have our yard sign on there.
Yeah, because I think it's for lease. Yeah. It's lease air, not lease.
Yeah.
LEES. Yeah, and the funny thing is that with those yard signs, we tried before, and people always do these yard sign things, and it never works because they're like, oh, we go out on an install, we put it out while it's on an install, homeowner comes out, sees it out there, throws it away within 2 days, right?
Yeah.
But then it was some guy who was actually down, he was like from Georgia or something, he was at a conference, he told us about the $100, win $100 if you put your yard sign out thing. I thought he was crazy. And so he started putting out yard signs on service calls because of that.
Yeah.
And so Josue manages it. He puts out these things and we say, look, if you put your yard sign out, you enter to win $100. And we just leave your name in the drawing.
Yeah.
And then you would be amazed. We have multi-million-dollar homes, like multi-million-dollar homes that have a yard sign in front of their yard for like 9 months, waiting, hoping they win the $100. And how many yard signs do you think we have in the Fresno area that are probably outright out, like active?
Active, I'll probably say over 2,000.
2,000 yard signs in our area because everybody's waiting to win $100. So our cost on that's about $100 a month. You got to administrate it though, right?
Yes.
But then also, didn't we make a deal where whoever puts out the yard sign, they get potential too, like they get $50 or something? So if like
the
technician,
whoever the technician is or the plumber, they also get a a spiff as well.
Yeah, so they're hoping that their name gets drawn as well.
Yeah.
So they get a spiff for putting it out there, and then the homeowner gets the $100. But then here's the deal to make it real. We had to post on Facebook a picture of them getting the check. And so if you go on the lease Facebook page, every about once a month or so, you'll see like so-and-so won $100 because they have the yard sign out. Yeah. And so then it's like, oh man, I'm going to leave mine out because I hope I win the $100. It's legit.
Yeah. People get excited.
Yeah.
And I remember one time 2 years ago, I went out there because we give them a real check, right? A little envelope check. Yeah. And the homeowner told me like, hey man, when you talked to me, I was expecting this big presentation. It's like, what do you mean? He's like, where's my fat check? It's like, what do you mean? He's like, I want a fat check. It's like, all right, cool. I like that. So the next month, I got a big old fat price check.
Like one of those like 5 foot wide ones?
Yeah. So it's always fun. People get excited every time they see the fat check.
Yeah. I saw in the office, I went in the office. The thing is, with our leadership style, what we try to do is like give authority to whoever's running the department, in your case, marketing, authority to do whatever they want. So I didn't even know the fat check was coming. I showed up at the office one day, and I hadn't been there in like 2 months. And I look in and like, there's this giant check, and it's like a dry erase board looking thing. Like it's like foam, but you could dry erase on it, so you can just write someone else's name in, take it, do the picture, and then give them the hand check like that they can actually deposit in their bank account.
Yeah.
So they win the $100.
Yeah.
But the piece to this is you got to draw like 3 or 4 names each time, right?
Yeah, I draw a couple names. The nice thing about Service Time is I could just download the report and boom, it's all there for me.
Yeah. So that's the hard part. So that's another piece to make this happen. We put isn't it like a task item on the job that says you left a yard sign? It says $0, $0 task, left a yard sign. That automatically, so now we can just run a report in Service Titan that says how many yard signs did I leave out? And then it's got all the people's names. And then you can just do a random number generator and say, okay, which one of these gets it? And so you pick like 4 of them. And then you drive out to each one of those locations. And if you get to the first one, they have the yard sign, they win. If they don't have a yard sign out, they threw it away. Then you go to the next one. If they have it, they win. And you just go through all 4 till you hit one. Yeah.
And as added value, actually, you're right. There's some homes that don't have them, and actually created door hangers to let them know they missed it.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even know that.
So that you put them on there, and there's a coupon on there, but also to give them the opportunity to get the yard sign back up, so they can call in like, hey, I'll be happy to place the yard sign again.
Wow.
So another thing to add on that too is, our technicians, our plumbers, they got so much to do when they go to the home. And one thing that I did on Service Time, because Service Time allows you to do a text message before you head out, I actually include that contest in the text message. So if my plumber or my tech forgets to mention it, at least the customer already knows.
You know what, Andres is our videographer. Andres, you have to make a clip of this. It's just the yard sign thing. So I'm going to take that and post it online and say, look, like if you guys want to know how we do our yard sign drawings, like this works out for us. It gets us great return. Service Sign actually makes it possible to like have it happen. It just really makes it a lot easier and easy to track and easy to execute. And we make a ton of money on it. We should give me a picture of those yard signs so that we can.
Yeah. And the cool thing too is people don't believe it's true. And I have to show them like, here's our Instagram, here's our page. And I just click on all the winners that we've had for the last 7 years. And it's insane just to go through all the pictures.
We've been doing it for 7 years. 7 years of yard signs, consistently doing it. And I was the one back in those days actually going and delivering the checks. And I can't tell you how excited people were. And I mean, obviously, if someone's like really living in a rundown house and they're barely making ends meet and all that stuff, $100 makes a big deal to them. But you could go to a multi-million-dollar house, you show them with $100, they're stoked too. Everybody's happy to see you when you're going to give them $100 because they won the yard sign thing. It makes me smile. Every time I drive through town and I see our yard signs out there, it's just like, oh, wow, there we go.
There we are.
There's a couple of them I've seen. We rebranded years ago, and I still see our yard signs with our old logo, which means that thing's been sitting out there for like 4 years, 5 years. Somebody's sitting in their yard hoping that they win the $100.
Yeah.
And some of them won the $100 and then leave it out there anyway because they want to win it again. Yeah. It's just awesome. Yeah. So.
And I've seen jobs happen in my neighborhood because I have my yard sign on my home, and I've seen jobs come through. And I was like, wow, that's cool. That's cool to see it's working.
The critical thing here is that you got to put a separate tracking phone number on each one of these yard signs. Correct. So that you can see actually how much revenue comes in from those. I remember when we first put them out, I thought this guy that told me about how he got to get them out of service calls with doing the $100 thing, how I thought he was crazy. And that first month, we did like $24,000 in revenue off of like 20 yard signs. I remember also I had a guy, his name is Pete Sanchez. He doesn't work for us anymore, but Pete worked for us for like 20 years. And he was, he had a giant family. And down in Fresno, I mean, you find some families, some of those farmer families that like, they've got cousins and aunts and uncles. And he said, Tom, can I put yard signs out even if they didn't do a job for us? And at the time I was like, oh, it's gonna be hard because we can't track in service side. And I was like, yeah, just let me know and I'll get like a list. Because we're also, here's the other piece of it. We give $5 out to every single yard sign they give out as a spiff, right? So he ran around, he probably had, I think he put out like 42 yard signs one weekend. He must have been driving all over town in my company truck, just burning gas, $5 a piece, just putting out yard signs. Just take a picture and say, put this one out, put this one out, put this one out. So do a special thing for him. But all of a sudden, like 40 something yard signs because Pete's got, family members all over the place. And I'm like, I don't get, if you convince anyone to put my yard sign in their yard, just leave it there, trying to win $100, fine. They literally start putting yard signs out that, they haven't even, for people that haven't even done business with us before. I don't even care. Like, it's just everywhere. Just awesome. So anyway, let's get into the heavier stuff. I love the yard sign thing.
Yeah, well, we mentioned about website, Google My Business, and I think the third one would be budget. You got to have a budget. You got to know how much you want to allocate to marketing. And once you have the budget in place, making sure you're getting a return. And for us at Lee's, we're very lucky to have financials every month. And I can track that to know exactly how things are operating, which is funny because we get quite a few people coming in just do shop tours with us. And that's the most basic question I ask them is like, what's your budget? And they're like, I don't know.
We probably have, by the way, anyone wants to come out, our address is 2440 South Gearhart Avenue. It's in Fresno, California, 93725. 2440 South Gearhart Avenue, Fresno, California, 93725. We do tours multiple times a week. We got someone there. Just call the office, text me, email us on our website, whatever it takes. And if you want to come out and visit it, you're welcome to come out and see everything. We're trying to do everything in transparency on this. But yeah, when they get there, it's like no budget. And the thing is, everyone thinks the budget's an afterthought. It's no big deal. Like we're trying to make money. Guys, even if you're a 3-tech shop, you're a 2-tech shop, whatever, you need to write a budget. I don't care. Excel spreadsheet works. If you have to do it on a piece of paper, that's fine. Like whatever you got to do that says, this is how much revenue we expect to do. If I'm going to do that much revenue, how many calls do I have to run to hit that much revenue? If that's the case, how many jobs do I have to run? If I need that many jobs, how many phone calls, inbound phone calls do I need? If that's the case, then how much marketing do I need to spend to generate those phone calls? It's pretty simple as that. And when you're small, you can actually generate those phone calls for pretty cheap. As you get bigger, you've already maxed out. Now let's talk about when you get bigger. You've already maxed out your Google My Business. You're getting as many as you can. You got as many reviews as you can. You've already spent money on Google Local Service Ads, GLSA. You've already spent money on, Home Advisor, Angie's List, whatever. What are some of the things, you've got tons of lines in the water. You're fishing for everything. Tommy Mello talks about his Val packs that he's sending out there. You've got billboard campaigns, everything else. We'll talk on another podcast. I'll have to have you out again. This is kind of an impromptu thing because Josue happens to be here. It's morning time. I was like, hey, since you're in town, like let's just do a podcast talking about things you can do and what we do in marketing. But we'll talk more about branding versus direct sale and what the difference between that is in the future. But bottom line is you've got everything going. You're a bigger company now. You're really pushing on all the different campaigns you can do. What are some of the things that we do to try to make sure that we're spending money effectively and that we're getting in the right spot and that we're optimizing everything we have?
Yeah, a key thing that I look at on a daily basis is actually I look at my marketing reports. So I get a daily cadence of what calls came in, what our revenue was, what our sales was, and also to what our jobs were booked. Because we talked about, as you scale, you want to make sure that everything's in working order. And let's say you're getting all the calls coming in, but you're not booking the jobs. Then you got to look at, well, what's going on in my CSR center? Do I have enough people to answer the calls, or are they answering the calls appropriately? And then from there, you go look at well, is it because of my technicians or my plumbers? That's something that I always recommend is you got to know your numbers, you got to know your reports, because if you don't have that, it's really hard to operate.
If you're the marketing manager, you should do that. As a business owner, it's just easier to just blame the marketing guy.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. No, I mean, and the thing is we get tied up in that as business owners. We're like, oh my gosh, I don't have enough revenue. It's the marketing guy. The marketing guy sucks. Like, I can't believe he sucks so bad. Or she sucks so bad. My marketing company, because we have a third-party marketing company, right?
Yeah,
it's not all on you. So we've got, our search engine optimization and a lot of our PPC stuff. Like, we're trusting them and putting money on them to like do their thing, but you're overseeing that and making sure that they're coordinated. Then you handle social media, you handle that stuff, right? So your job is to make that phone ring, make the leads come in. But that doesn't mean that the actual revenue is going to hit or that the profit's going to hit the bottom line. So what you're saying is look, like, I'm looking at how much money I'm spending to generate these calls. After that, if my call booking rate is like 50%, that means half of all the calls that I generate are going to Zippo. And so now you're getting, and this is something that Josue does really well, and this is something you do, is Josue came to Catherine. Catherine's our GM, and he goes and says, okay, Catherine, like, I really want to start having a marketing meeting, like talking to these people about like what's going on is with the other managers in the room.
Yeah.
And that, I think, really opened up stuff, because I zoomed in once from here and saw it, and Josue is standing there and he's talking to the CSR manager saying, look, like, your call booking rate has got to come up. On these campaigns, our call booking rate's low. And maybe that campaign is offering like some special deal, or like we're going to get out there real fast, and the call center manager doesn't know that, so they're not booking really well. So when the customer calls in and says, hey, I saw this ad and I wanted this promo, and then all of a sudden the CSR is not trained on it, so they start stuttering and they don't know what is going on, and all of a sudden call booking rate tanks. And that's a problem where the marketing team and the call center have got to start working together to find out what's going on and make sure that the call booking rate on that campaign picks up. Because at that point, it's not about, hey, we're getting a low return, we must not be spending the right money on the right ad. It could be that we're just not booking the call well enough. And then the next thing you mentioned is like, okay, so you said the techs or the plumbers. Well, what you're really talking about is the conversion rate, right?
Correct.
So let's say that you're kicking butt, you're generating, 1,000 calls a week, and all of a sudden, and by the way, in the summer, it's a lot more now. Let's say it's 1,000, 2,000 calls a day.
Yeah, the phones ring nonstop.
Yeah. You got the whole call center rocking and rolling. And by the way, at that point, you've got to make sure that, because we've built our budget at the beginning of the year should also tell us this is the amount of phone calls we should expect in our busy season, and this is the amount of call center representatives we're going to need in order to handle those phone calls. Because we can't get into July and be like, oh my gosh, we don't have enough people we have to hire. Because by the time we hire them and train them and everything else, you're done. Like, the season's over. So you know that ahead of time. Anyway, so you're working with them ahead of time, and I've seen you do that. It's in our budgeting planning, meaning you're in that across the line.
Well, one thing to add to that too is what's interesting is sometimes, I'll be in the call center and having the right culture in there to be like, hey, we got to answer the phones, because sometimes they don't realize that phone call they're missing probably cost me $150 to generate that call. And so that puts it in their mind.
Could be $200.
Yeah.
$150, whatever.
It varies. So, if you're not answering that phone call, you're literally throwing money down the toilet.
Just burning it every time it rings.
Yeah.
And they're not picking it up.
Yeah.
All right, so conversion rates in the field. So now you've got the call center dialed in. They're really converting those calls. They're getting 75, 80, 90% call booking rate. And a real call booking rate, not this, we excused everything in service site, and so all of a sudden, we have 100% call booking rate.
And that's a thing too, I've seen.
Yeah, you got to make sure that they're actually classifying these calls properly, and your manager needs to be doing that. Call center manager does. So you've got that going on. But they get the calls, they get the jobs booked, you got the people in the field. Now they're not converting. Now all of a sudden your marketing looks like garbage because we're not getting good return. When in reality, the people are getting on the jobs, but they're not converting anything. So that's the interesting thing. The marketing coordinator at that point needs to be working with the service manager and talking to the general manager and make sure, hey, is there sales training there? Are we getting it? Like, how are we converting these calls? And the interesting thing is, once they start converting, then you have more budget and more money coming in to spend to generate more calls, which generates more money for the company. But it's like everything down the line has to be happening. The accounting has to be collecting the money and making sure that it's deposited. Like your accounting reports need to be coming in quickly so that you can get fast information on what's actually working.
Yeah. Yeah, because you have to pivot really quick. I mean, I know these last couple of months have been very different. And at the end of the day, to know how we need to pivot, it comes back to the numbers and looking exactly, well, where did we fall short? What used to work in the past? Why has it not worked in the past? And you go in there and you're like, well, this is broken or that's broken. Or, hey, we set up a new call center on how the calls are routed, and the new call center doesn't allow for a queue. So if your call center is booked up and they're calling in and they get a 5-second ring and they go to voicemail, it's like, well, shoot, the call center setup wasn't set up right, and then we got to change that. And it's constantly optimizing those campaigns to see what's going on.
So you're running Service Titan so that you can see pretty quickly like how much revenue is selling per campaign, and that's probably the biggest thing, most important thing we have in Service Titan, right? How often are you checking those campaigns in Service Titan? How often are you running those marketing reports, and which marketing reports are you running?
So I have a daily marketing report. It's called the Campaign Summary Report, and I get that daily just to see what the norms are.
Are you actually checking that daily though?
I am, yes. Just because I want to make sure I see that our top campaigns are constantly working. For example, I saw a post yesterday of Google My Business set up this new Google Assistant call feature and didn't know about it. And I started looking like, oh, shoot, yeah, you're right. Our call volume is a little bit down on our GMBs, and getting that fixed to make sure we're connecting with the customer. Or just monitoring as also the calls coming in and listening to them, or seeing what people are emailing us through the website form. And the way I found out about that call center issue was I saw the response and I'm like, this doesn't look right. Why did this customer say they called in 20 times, couldn't get a hold of somebody? And so I dug deep into it, and he's like, yeah, he's right. He called in 20 times, was on the phone for 5 seconds, and I can understand why. He was upset that he couldn't get anybody on the phone. And then once a month,
you're gonna make me cry while I'm sitting here. Go ahead, keep going.
No, but it's the honest truth, right?
Yeah.
And once a month, yes, I do meet with my management team just to show them the numbers, showing what we're projecting, what we're doing really well.
And when you say your management team, it's not a whole bunch of other marketers. You're the only marketing guy.
Yeah.
At our company.
Yeah.
When you're talking to the management team, you're talking to who?
My call center manager, my planning manager, my service manager, my dispatch team manager. And so, because we're all collaborating. Also, too, they give me feedback. They tell them like, hey, Josue, is this this new campaign? Obviously, they'll email me if something really urgent that same day, or call me. But like, hey, do we have this campaign going on? We're offering this crazy deal. And I'm like, what do you mean? And basically digging deep into it, or, hey, we're planning for this new offer, making sure everybody's aware so we can offer the best customer experience to the customer. And then on the management side, with these agencies that I work with, I do meet with them on a weekly or bi-weekly cadence just to make sure we're all on the same page. And that's also very important because, I mean, this thing's constantly changing, especially on the Google world, and making sure we're staying up to date on the requirements that Google has. And people don't realize things change all the time on Google, and you have to make sure that whatever changes you make, you're on it. So I've through the school, I've learned at Harvard is that you want to kind of monitor your website at all times. And the cool thing with this platform that I use, I actually get a weekly cadence report to know how my website's performing. So if I get any error pages, if I get broken backlinks, it tells me right away. And because we're always optimizing, I mean, things can change, right? Or something can happen. And so it's always important just to be on top of them and knowing where they're at, where they're going.
Tell me about when you're talking about monitoring these things closely, tell me about capacity. Capacity starts filling up, especially for the AC companies out there, because plumbing companies' capacity fills up as well. AC companies, it's like feast or famine all the time. It's 20 degrees outside, it's 50 degrees outside, it's 90 degrees outside. They just, all of a sudden, call volumes just go like crazy. What are you doing when capacity changes and when it fills up?
Well, obviously, if your capacity is full and you're still going 100% full throttle on your marketing spend, once your capacity is full and you're still getting that call volume, you're literally burning your leads because you can't meet the customer right then and there. So what we do is we throttle down. So depending on the campaigns that I can throttle down. So for example, Google Ads, right? If my board's 100% full and it's booked out for 2 weeks, that probably doesn't make sense to keep running my Google Ads, right? Because let's say a customer looks it up, they click it, might spend $80, $120, whatever it is, and customer answers, customer calls us, we answer the phone like, hey, we can't go out there for 2 weeks. Yeah, what does that look, right? Looks pretty bad. So it's constantly ramping up, ramping down, seeing exactly how we can make sure that we're using our marketing spend very effectively.
And I mean, I remember seeing what I think people don't think about is that when you do that and you keep running your marketing too much in the summer, when you're just going full steam, it actually kills your call center too, because your call center starts dropping calls left and right. You have existing customers trying to get through that can't get through because you got all these calls coming. So you're burning cash on your ads, but you're also burning your team, making them mad. You're killing your customer experience with your customers. All that stuff's happening. I mean, on that one, shameless plug for ServiceTitan on this one, but they're coming out with Google Ads Optimizer. Just came out a little while ago. That's basically telling you, hey, this is when to ramp down. It's constantly looking at every second like, hey, your capacity is filling up. We need to start ramping down your spend on these ads because they're low performing anyway and they're costing you more money. And then as your capacity opens up, it increases it. But you still need to take responsibility of making sure that like that's under control. And probably you're gonna have to do some forecasting because some of this stuff takes a while to slow down. Like, is Yelp instantaneous? I can't remember, because before it was like it took a month in advance. I'd have to tell Yelp to change when I was doing marketing back in the day. Mm-hmm. But can it move now quickly, or?
It depends on the agreement they have. You could be monthly, or you can just dial down like, hey, I don't want to be spending for this keyword. But it does vary depending on the agreement.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of those cases, you've got to start thinking in advance about how you're going to be spending your money. And some things like branding campaigns, like your billboards, you're going to take down your billboards in the summer. It's just, they're going to keep going. You want people to know who you are. Yeah. But there are things you can turn down.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What are some other things or anything else that you can think of that you think the listeners would want to know when it comes to marketing, like how we're handling it, things that we're doing, things that they could be doing?
No, I think website, Google My Business, and having a budget, really, it's the fundamental things. And one thing I've learned because I like to read, I like to listen to marketing books and business books as well, is it's just the fundamentals, man. It always comes back to the fundamentals.
On that budget, I think it's something that's important to point out is that I see these contractors that have budgets. So, and if they have a budget, that's usually better than most. But then they make these marketing budgets that are like flat. So it's like, I want to spend $10,000 a month in marketing, and it's every single month, January through December. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, because I mean, HVAC, we're very weather dependent, right? We recognize a lot of the leads do come in the summer months and in the cold winter months, and you want to scale. And if you're not scaling, if you don't wrap it down, again, it comes back to you just burning your dollars.
Yeah, and so you should be thinking about like how much you're going to need to generate in a given time period.
Correct. Yeah, and also to recognizing the demand, like we talked about earlier, is hey, if I'm going to wrap up for the slower time or the busy time, I got to make sure I have enough people to run those calls. And also too, if you want to play with other new marketing campaigns, like you got to have that in the budget, because sometimes you could see this new, I see them all the time. A good one that I saw recently is Thumbtack. Thumbtack is a pretty new platform to get leads, and you have to play with that, right? Or like, oh, I can't do it because I'm stuck at $10,000, right? So you have to wrap up, wrap down, see if you get allotted your money to play with those new campaigns. And obviously you got to track it, you got to test it, give it 3 or 4 months to see if it's going to generate the calls for you. Another thing too is if you are going to be implementing new marketing campaigns, making sure you let your CSRs know how to log in and respond to those reviews, to those leads, right?
Those requests.
Because if they don't know how to log in, it
just burns it.
Yeah, it defeats the whole purpose. Or letting them know what the expectation is, right? One thing I always tell them is speed a lead, guys. Speed a lead. The quicker you can respond to that lead, the higher opportunity you have of booking that call and getting tech out there.
Yeah, there was a study from Northwestern actually that was posted, and a guy was speaking to me about it. He said, "Look, we did a study and found that if you respond to inbound lead in 5 minutes versus 5 hours, you're 3,000 times more likely to close that lead if you respond in 5 minutes." And I thought about it. I thought, you know what? You're right. Like someone puts in for something, requests something online. I can't remember what I ate for breakfast this morning. I can't remember what we were working on 2 hours ago. You call me back 5 hours from now, I've already found another company. I've already moved on. I probably already got the job done. So if you're starting a new campaign and they don't know about it, they're not checking it all the time, or it's not coming up, or you don't have a simple way to integrate it into Service-Titan so you can see it all the time, you're just not going to beat it.
Yeah.
I think something else that I want to ask you about is because a lot of people are afraid to spend that money on marketing. And I think you've got confidence because you've done this and you can track all of your campaigns and see the revenue that's generating. And you're definitely not afraid to shut stuff off, right?
No,
it's not working.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We've tried everything. It's not the call booking rate. It's nothing else. It happened with us on Home Advisor. When we first started tracking, we first got Service-Titan. We spent $3,000 a month on Home Advisor. And I thought, oh my gosh, look at this. We're getting 100 and something phone calls. That's great. It's like $30 a call. And it turns out off those calls, we generated $3 $99 diagnostic fees, and that's it. $300 of revenue on $3,000 marketing spend. We later figured out how to make that better, and we actually use Home Advisor still, but we had to dial it in first. You got to dial it in. Once you got the confidence on your marketing, how much did you increase your marketing budget, and what is the marketing budget now at Lee's, for the Sacramento, Fresno, and Visalia locations?
Yeah, I think it always comes back to what the financial planning is for the year, right? So, for example, 5 years ago when I was at Lee's, we had 50 employees, right? So that marketing spend was completely different now.
So it's 50 employees 5 years ago?
Yeah, 5 years ago, 50 employees. Now we got over 150. So obviously, I'm not going to be using 5-year marketing budget for 5 years ago for now, because things have changed a lot. We have more text to run, more plumbers to get out on calls, and also too, when you plan for growth, you gotta throw fuel to the flame, right? You can't just be like,
we're going to publish our financials. So what is the marketing budget for the month of April, the one we're in right now? Well,
yeah, I think I'll have to double check on that. Apologize.
Oh, sway, wrong answer.
Yeah, wrong answer.
Roughly, what is it?
I think we're around $300,000 for them.
Okay, so you're around $300,000 in marketing spend for the month.
Yeah.
The thing is that I want to make sure everyone's clear on is that we're spending $300,000 for the month in marketing. The principles that we're talking about, Josue keeps going back to website, GMB, basic stuff, and then we got into the more advanced things, talking about marketing, tracking 10,000 different phone numbers, doing all this different stuff, checking it all the time. At a $1,000 a month marketing budget and a $300,000 a month marketing budget, the principles are the same. The learnings are the same. You take your marketing budget, you're trying something, you're testing it, you're checking to see what works and what doesn't. And if it's working, you put more money on it and you grow it. If it's not working, you cut it. And it doesn't matter the size, the fundamentals and the things you need to focus on are still the same. You can still get to the same spot. Yeah. I think that's critical.
Yeah. And I do want to add something. The reason why I was kind of thrown off guard on that question was because I was trying to think about because you got to make sure everybody's aware of the budget, right? And I remember I got an email the other day of the new budget that we're working on. So I'm trying to figure out, and there's two, by the way, there's two budgets, right?
Yeah. So we had our base and our stretch this happened. Catherine and I sat down, and Catherine was telling me about what she thinks she can do. And I said, well, she was overperforming the base budget by a long shot. And I'm like, just make yourself a stretch budget. So Catherine came up with a new budget and brought it to me. I was like, yeah, that looks pretty good. And so they're really pushing the limits now on like what they're going to be able to do. And she's really trying to hit that 100% growth rate this year. And she's actually, with what she's doing right now, I think she might actually hit it, which would be pretty awesome for the year to hit that when you're at scale, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but again, the fundamentals are the same, right?
Yeah. It's fundamentals are the same, sticking to it, focusing on it, and checking on it all the time. Yeah. One of the things we do, this is a pro tip that I learned a little while ago. In order to slow down all the robocalls, there's two things you can do. One is you can put on, at least in Phones Pro, what we're doing is, hey, press 1 if you're a real person kind of thing. You don't want to do that on GLSA because that's going to hurt your rankings and it's going to stop you because you need a live person picking up right away. But for the numbers that aren't GLSA, by the way, GLSA, Google Local Service Ads, you can put, hey, we want to serve our community. I think Tommy Mello does this really well at A1 Garage Door. If you call his number, he says, hey, get a ton of robocalls lately. We want to get the best customer experience possible and make sure only the real people get through to our customer service agents. Can you just tell us if you're a real person, press 1. And at that point, it just stops all those robocalls. The other thing you can do, though, to clear up those phone lines is you can look at those tracking phone numbers and run reports on, like, how many calls do we actually get from them? Because a lot of them, if you acquire a business, those businesses were getting robocalls of their own. And so if you've got zero revenue in the past 2 years from this business you acquired 10 years ago, and no one has that phone number anymore, but it generated 2,700 phone calls, it's all robocalls coming because they're just calling you, just shut that phone number down.
Yeah.
And it just clears out. I had one person, I cut the call volume in his office by 50% just because he was a guy from Florida. And he just got all these calls just flowing in, is constantly taking robocalls and constantly taking sales calls, trying to sell workers' comp insurance, new GPS systems, whatever. I said, look, if I shut down these phone numbers, you generated like $700 in revenue last year from these, I think it was like 400 phone numbers or something like that. But it also spent thousands and thousands and thousands of inbound calls. And so we shut it down. He lost maybe a few $100 of revenue the following year, but cut the call center volume in half.
Yeah. I think the CSRs are a lot happier too, right? Because they're dealing with those hangups, those telemarketers. Another thing too that I've recognized is because we're on Dialpad, we're on Phones Pro, and that's a voice over IP, so it's all internet connection, right? And one thing we've recognized over time is you got to have the right internet speed. Because if you don't have the right internet speed, your call quality is not there.
Yeah.
And the customer experience is not there either.
So I think the key there is if you're going to be voice over IP, don't go cheap on your internet connection.
Yeah.
It's just not, you're running your business on that. Also, having a backup internet connection, because you could have a backhoe digging up something in your street and it cuts your, fiber line, and you could have no internet for like 5 days. I knew a company that did that. It was a party rental company. You actually know them pretty well. And they had nothing. No phones, no internet, no nothing for days. And after that happened, I set up a backup 5G antenna on my roof just to make sure I had a backup internet connection if I had to. That was before the days of Phones Pro where now I could just send everybody home and have them work from home and answer phone calls until I could get backed up to speed. But you want to make sure you've got some kind of failover that helps you out.
And I 100% agree with you. It's the beauty with ServiceTitan is there's so much data you can look at and you can find right away your inefficiencies. And that's the internet connection. It's it's spam calls. This campaign has a ton of spam calls. Hey, I can run a report. The last 2 years, 0 revenue, but over 2,000 calls. What's going on there? Yeah, turn it off. Boom, done.
Yeah, it's all over.
Yeah.
Anything else you can think of?
one that I see from quite a bit, respond to your reviews, guys. I like Tommy Mello's way of explaining it. You know, when a customer leaves a review, they're like giving you a high five, and when you don't respond, you're not giving them a high five back. So it's always fun to respond back to reviews. So
yeah, make sure you're interacting with your customers. Make sure you get in there. There's a lot of that stuff that just like you just don't think about.
Yeah, it's simple stuff, man.
Yeah. Are you responding to all the 5-star reviews as well?
I respond to all the reviews. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what I've learned too is when you do get those 1-star reviews, I see them as coaching opportunities for me, myself. And the quicker you respond to those 1-star reviews, getting on the call with the customer, the better opportunity you have to making that right. And so, no, it's always fun to respond and to respond to all of them because that's what Google wants. And that's across all platforms too. It's on Yelp, Home Advisor, on the Better Business Bureau. Those are all platforms that you want to respond.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing we just mentioned that's clear is like, even on the 5-star reviews, you're responding to them. You're letting them know, hey, we heard you. Thank you so much. Thank you for supporting our business. I mean, that's awesome. Just something that not everybody does. And just really is going to help drive that traffic and make things happen.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Thanks a lot, Josue.
All right.
Thanks for having it this morning, coming over to the house and filming this with us.
It's fun.
All right.